How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Greetings, conversationalists across America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. Glad to have you with me. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program. Coming to you live from Jacksonville, Florida, doing an event tonight with WOKV down here, saluting America and the troops. There's still a couple of tickets left, I think, if you go to WOKV.com. If you're in the area, the event starts at 7 o'clock tonight in Ponte Vedra, and I will see you there. And then doing a bourbon tasting event with some donors to the local children's hospital here tomorrow before I head home. We got to talk about China. There is a lot of fantastical thinking that is shaping up on the chip sale by NVIDIA. I have gotten inundated with people saying, maybe this is like the Hezbollah pagers. We've sabotaged the chips. Maybe so. I talked to a friend who is an actual expert, like legit expert, like knows the intimate workings of how this stuff works. And he says, most likely not, because one, the NVIDIA CEO is a massive, massive proponent of China. And the NVIDIA CEO believes that the 21st century is China's century and has arranged his life and businesses accordingly. So why would he participate? And two, the Chinese are very smart. They can inspect the chips, unlike Hezbollah, which had no reason to inspect the pagers that they were getting from a Eastern European company and a Indonesian company. They had no reason to be suspicious. These are coming from Taiwan via the United States, so China has every reason to be suspicious and is going to look at the source code and look at everything and can look at the design of the chips, and they already have some of these chips that they've smuggled into the country. They can compare them to see. So he said, probably not. Probably not. What is going on? I will get to what is probably going on here. But I'm actually going to dive into what I wrote this morning. If you text the word data to 33777, you just get a single link back to the show notes. You don't get all the other stuff. If you text Eric to 33777, the top link is the show notes, and then everything else, you get social media links and stuff. But the show notes are completely free today. They're not behind the paywall. Everybody gets them, so you get everything. And you would all get my morning piece as well, which is also my syndicated column. So it's not behind the paywall, as much as some people would bully me to do it. I'm looking at that person. And you can get the information. You can see what I wrote this morning. Yesterday, day before yesterday now. It would have been Monday. Monday, the Justice Department arrested 2 individuals who were trying to sneak NVIDIA chips into China. They were buying up lots of chips and going to sneak into China, and the Justice Department arrested them and said in the press release that this is a matter of national security. Our chips are so much more advanced than anything China's been able to make. Whoever controls the AI stack controls the future. We control it right now by compute power. We don't want China to get their hands on it. We have a 32-1 advantage against China. What does that mean? Well, let me explain to you how the AI chips work first. It's very related to those of you who are into Bitcoin and stuff. You know, you buy the Bitcoin mining machines, and what they are is they're computers with these very high-end graphics processing units. If you're from the 80s and 90s, you know computers have CPUs and GPUs. The CPU kind of runs the computer, and the GPU is in charge of the mathematical equations needed for graphics. Well, it turns out those mathematical equations needed for graphics are way more necessary these days than high-end CPUs, because the mathematical equations that the GPUs can solve very efficiently go into both the algorithms and formulas for cryptocurrency and go into the calculations needed for artificial intelligence. So the GPU generates a lot of heat and produces a lot of mathematics. That's why these data centers require massive amounts of water. Now, there's this mythology that they consume the water. They don't really. They pump in a lot of water and they keep it in storage tanks and they recycle it through the buildings to cool the buildings. So it's a one-time thing, more or less. There's a little bit of the escape through steam and things like that, but generally they're not massive consumers of water once they've taken in their first round of water. You've got all these data centers. These data centers are filled with GPUs that do a lot of mathematical calculations very quickly and that are able to then process the algorithmic equations necessary to do artificial intelligence computations to answer things. ChatGPT is the most famous. ChatGPT is asking people to please stop telling its computer systems thank you, because when you tell the computer system thank you, the computer replies, and that reply is generated by a GPU mathematical equation in one of these data centers, and it costs them energy. So they would prefer you not to be polite to the robots. If you're like me and you've seen Terminator, you're very polite to the robots. So now that you understand AI is based on graphics processing units, and graphics processing units do a massive amount of mathematical calculations very quickly, here's what you need to know. The American computational advantage of China is 32 to 1. And what does that mean? It means for every one mathematical calculation that can be done on a Chinese-produced top-end AI chip, the American chip can do 32. So for every one calculation that China's doing, we're able to do 32 calculations. That's pretty staggering. However, if we give China these NVIDIA chips, now these are not the most advanced NVIDIA chips. These are advanced NVIDIA chips, but they're not the top of the line NVIDIA chips. We're not selling China the top of the line NVIDIA chips, but just these NVIDIA chips are so good and so much more advanced than anything that can be produced in China that our advantage will go from 32 calculations for every one calculation of theirs to 1.3 calculations for every one calculation of theirs. So why would we do this? I'm in broadcasting from Jacksonville, Florida today. South of me, of course, are the orange groves of Florida, where the Florida growers are struggling against Huanglong Bing. Huanglong Bing sounds like some adult novelty something. It's actually a fungus that the Chinese got over here in 2005. It's also called orange blight. It's also called the citrus greening disease. It turns an orange to green and kills the oranges. It's killing the orange groves in Florida. It's harming the industry. Someone from China got it into this country in around 2005, 2003, 2005. That's when it first started showing up. They claim maybe it was just an import issue. Someone wasn't paying attention. Well, consider in June, a Chinese plant scientist at the University of Michigan and another Chinese scientist were arrested by federal agents for trying to smuggle in Fusarium graminarium. Fusarium graminarium is not a Harry Potter spell. It's called wheat blight. It wipes out wheat crops. And 2 Chinese scientists tried to smuggle this wheat blight into the United States. They actually did smuggle it into the United States, and they got caught and were arrested. In November, just last month, under the radar, while everybody was distracted by the holidays, 3 additional Chinese scientists, also at the University of Michigan, were arrested for trying to smuggle in biological pathogens related to roundworms to infect our soil. In 2003, local police stumbled upon a Chinese biolab in California that is best described as a bioweapons lab and called in the feds for help. The lab was funded through a bank in China controlled by the Chinese Communist Party directly. Not through middlemen, it actually is the bank of the Chinese Communist Party. According to a congressional committee that looked into it, quote, the illegal biolab contained thousands of samples of labeled, unlabeled, and encoded potential pathogens, including HIV, malaria, tuberculosis, and COVID. The lab also contained active live Ebola strains. And quote, again from the House Investigative Committee, the biolab contained nearly 1,000 transgenic mice genetically engineered to mimic the human immune system. Lab workers said that the mice were designed to catch and carry the COVID-19 virus and spread it. The Chinese ran essentially a bioweapons lab in Los Angeles off the books, funded by the Chinese Communist Party. It is well documented. It is known. It's not an exaggeration. We know what was in there. Ebola, mice infected with COVID-19 designed to spread to humans from mice based on how they had arranged the genome of the mice through genetic engineering. And of course, most famously of all, the Chinese have hacked into our telecom system so thoroughly that Americans are being advised not to share sensitive information over cell phones or over landline phones, and instead to use text messaging apps like iMessage or WhatsApp. Even members of Congress are being told don't have secure conversations over cell phones. The Chinese have so thoroughly hacked into our telecom network, we don't know how to get them out. They've hacked into the water plants and power grids in certain parts of the country. So why would we give to China NVIDIA chips that will not only erase our competitive advantages against China, but allow China more thorough access into our telecom grid, our power grid, our water grid, and everything else? Why would we do this? Because there are some in the White House setting national security policy who believe that we can actually work with China and Russia. The National Security Strategy document, the 32-page or 33-page executive summary was released. The rest of it wasn't. Let me read for you what is in the part that wasn't released to the public. The longer version of the report focuses on the weakening of the European Union and proposes a new grouping of countries called the C5, U.S., China, Russia, Japan, and India. That's not hemmed in by the G7 rules. There would be no European representation unless you count Russia. These people in the White House advising the president, again, this is not the president, this is those around him, really do believe that everyone else has gotten everything wrong and they're getting it right, and that China can be a partner. I don't know if you're paying attention or not. China doesn't want to be a partner. They want to be our master. But these people are the ones who convinced the president to sell NVIDIA chips to China, and they will wipe out our advantage. There is one plausible explanation for why. And that is that NVIDIA right now makes up 10% of the S&P 500. If you tell NVIDIA, no, you can't do this, NVIDIA's stock will go down. And if NVIDIA's stock will go down, the S&P 500 will go down. And if the S&P 500 goes down, people already upset about the cost of living are going to be even more upset because of what happens to their 401ks. And you don't want that to happen to before a midterm. But the president has already imposed tariffs to drive up costs in the name of preserving our national security. So why in God's name would he sell chips to China that will completely eliminate our AI advantage over China? Why? This isn't America first, it's China first. So why? I don't believe the president wants to put China first. What I do believe is advisors inside the White House have advised the president that we can cut deals with China, and they're honest brokers. And these people will go down in history as the ones who sold us out to China. It's remarkable that this is where we are right now. It's a bad deal, and it needs to be undone. Hello, folks. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Philip tells me that the show notes are not behind the paywall today, so you can get the show notes completely free if you text the word ERICK, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. It is the very first link. You'll see what you're missing. And in fact, given my travel schedule on days like this, the show notes are even more important to me as we go through things, including the daughter of Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Cortina Machado accepted the Nobel Peace Prize on behalf of her mother, who was remaining in hiding for opposing Nicolas Maduro, and now we know exited the country by boat. Didn't get blown up by the U.S. Navy, thank God, and has gone to another country. And one of the questions is regime change coming? The president said yesterday and the day before in an interview with Politico that, in fact, there's something coming, and that he intends to take action in some capacity to push Maduro out the door. Now, there is one caveat there that you need to know. The caveat is this. All of the gaming of the scenarios of Maduro going is Venezuela goes into collapse. That there will be a necessary rebuilding effort. The Cubans, you should know, have reached out to the Trump administration and asked them what it would look like if Maduro goes. And from what I am told, the Trump administration publicly told the Cubans, you're next, and privately told the Cubans that, we'll see. Sounds like people are ready to get rid of Maduro. We'll see. Now, you may be ready to get rid of your current bank. You might want to consider an Old Glory Bank is a nationwide bank that you can use, and they're great people and they offer great services. They're a fully functioning bank, even though they're an online bank. So there's not a branch near you, but you can still deposit cash. You can deposit checks with their fantastic mobile app. If you're a business, they are very hands-on with their businesses. So when it comes time for you, if you need lending options, Old Glory Bank can help you. They get very familiar with your business and your needs. They learn your business so that you can work with them. You go to oldglorybank.com/Eric, oldglorybank.com/ERICK, and you sign up with Old Glory Bank today. You get no fee checking and no fee savings like I do. You can get the premium accounts that have interest-bearing checking. If you're active duty military, they're going to waive fees for you on that. Veterans and first responders also get great deals. Your kids can get a checking account, custodial account. oldglorybank.com/Eric. oldglorybank.com/ERICK. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. oldglorybank.com/Eric. Greetings. My producer asks me to, Lord and Savior, begins with the Lord and Savior. Please tell everyone you know Lake Oconee is not actually in the district you're using as a point of reference. Thank you. Yes. Calm down. The district that the Republicans won, Oconee County area, it's north of Lake Oconee. It's towards Athens, but nobody knows where that is outside of the state of Georgia. So using a point of reference, because most people do kind of know the general lake country of Georgia. So in any event, Athens, Georgia dominated. The Democrats fired up. Same in Florida. Fired up Democrats turning out. Now, I want to shift from all the politics to something else. In large part because I need to have a meta conversation here very briefly with my boss who may be listening, and I need him to know to spare him any angst, aggravation, and email. I last night at 10 o'clock in the evening completed my annual sexual harassment and discrimination training. The automated, integrated employment systems have been bombarding him, poor guy, telling him to remind me that I have a deadline certain for my sexual harassment and discrimination training. I want you all to know that I am now well trained on how to sexually harass and discriminate others, thanks to my training. Yes, I know exactly what to do now to be inappropriate at the office. I was well trained last night. So relatedly, I'm sitting at my golf club last night, having dinner, and talking to the couple next to me. We're laughing about me having to go do it, and the issue of pronouns came up. I was telling him my agent has been badgering his son, who is a professional in an industry that'll go nameless, that he needed to just ditch his pronouns in a signature line, because all the kids these days put their pronouns in their signature line. And so the guy who's next to me is a senior executive at a corporation you would all know, and he said, "Do you know, in our company now, if we get a resume from someone and it has their pronouns in it, it tends to go in the rejection pile very quickly." Why? Because if you're into the social justice warrior cause du jour of pronouns, you're into all the causes. This is related to what I was talking about yesterday. Young women now, the issues, they don't want to get married, they don't want to have kids. And you know what the underlying context is? The meta commentary, if you will, the commentary about the commentary. It's that young women are adopting. They don't want to get pregnant and have kids because they're adopting children at very high rates, except the children they're adopting are not human beings, they're causes. And they don't want to have live human being children because the live human being children would interfere with their ability to care and nurture their causes. And it's a big warning sign in a lot of companies now that if you have your pronouns in your signature line, in your resume, you name it, they're not going to hire you, because if you're willing to embrace the most absurd cause of all, the pronoun game, you're going to be embracing everything. And they want you to show up 9 to 5, 8 to 4, whatever the time of day is that you're working, and be devoted to your job, not to the Palestinians, not to the environment, not to the alphabet gang of issues, not to the outrage that, oh my gosh, you said LGBT, you didn't put the Q on, you didn't put the IA, you didn't put the plus, you didn't put the extra letters. How dare you drive an SUV? What I've noted, and I would not say that I myself experienced it, I would never talk about that. What I will say is that I have heard from friends who have gone through their own company's HR training. And I will neither confirm nor deny that I experienced this myself. But my friends who have experienced it, they've said that as their companies have gotten through wokeism, their HR training has become even more woke. And I'm like, how more woke could your HR training be than it already is? So having this conversation last night with individual from company that doesn't play the pronoun games anymore. His HR used to be, what is sexual harassment? What is discrimination? How to not discriminate in the office. And remember that there are passive discrimination issues that you don't mean to discriminate, but you are, and you need to be aware of it. And has now gotten into microaggressions. Something they never had to deal with before, the microaggression. You may not think you've offended someone. You may actually think you have taking care of this person's interests, but you might actually be offending this person. Like, for example, one of his examples was in his HR training that you chose a different conference schedule because you were attempting to accommodate one of the employees who is a mother. And because you chose a different schedule without consultation with her, you have engaged in a passive form of discrimination that could disrupt the office because you thought you were looking out for her best interest because you presumed that the burden of motherhood would mean she wouldn't want to go to a particular conference, and you never consulted with her first. And then he was explaining to me that not only did he have to deal with microaggressions for the first time, he had to deal with apologies for the first time. That's right. Now, I've heard this from another buddy of mine who's at a Fortune 100 company, said he had the same thing, that in their training for discrimination and sexual harassment, the one guy for the Fortune 100 company, they actually had a consultant come into the company. The other guy got to watch videos and just had to sit through the videos and then answer the questions to prove he had written it. I mean, that's what I did last. I sat in my office and look, I was a lawyer. I did discrimination law. I just sit there and let the videos play and I can answer the questions and I can get the questions right because I did plaintiff's employment discrimination law. I've sued companies for discrimination. I sued Boeing one time, won the case. But this guy who was telling me the consultant came in to his Fortune 100 company, another Atlanta company, not going to say it, probably guess it, Fortune 100, all that. The consultant discussed within the microaggressions and the unintentional discrimination, and then how to apologize. And apparently, according to now HR, you're no longer allowed to say you're sorry you offended someone. You're not allowed to go, let's do one of the examples. One of the examples is three dudes working at a coffee shop. And the one guy says to the other guy, they're sitting with the third employee who's not in on the conversation, and the two guys together are talking about a business deal, and the one guy says, if you got a big stick, you might as well use it. And it was a reference to a male organ implied, and the third guy, very clearly not heterosexual, is offended. That's discriminatory conduct. You can't say stuff like people typically say stuff anymore. You must guard your words. And so then what is the apology? The apology is, according to this consultant for this Fortune 100 company, you can't say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you with my language. No. Your apology must be, I'm sorry, I used heteronormative slang for male anatomy that I didn't realize would be offensive to someone who's homosexual, and I am very sorry that I used these heteronormative slangs for male biology. You have to, in your apology, acknowledge what you did was wrong and how you now understand. You can't just say, I'm sorry I offended you. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. No, you're not allowed to do that anymore. This is how these companies are now like, we're not going to hire the pronoun kids anymore. We're not doing that. You got purple hair and you make a great cup of coffee. Starbucks is for you, not for us. We need engineers, not baristas. But the companies that are going in that direction now are like, we're going to let HR work their magic. And let's also be real here. What happens in so many of these companies, not all companies, but in a lot of companies, they just make you go through it. It's a check the box thing for liability purposes. And if you don't go through it, you're easier to fire. And when they're looking for people to toss from the company, he didn't do HR compliance, toss him, he's a liability, makes it real easy. You got to go through your HR compliance. And then they load up, now listen, I was a lawyer. And I know this one is for real because this was part of my job. You write out the standards of conduct. And the standards of conduct are so broad and detailed that it makes it easy for you to fire someone for cause. So you don't have to pay them unemployment or anything like that. You can find the line and the standards of conduct that they violated and fire. And essentially what this is the lawyers have made this all complicated for everyone. And the reason the lawyers have made it all complicated for everyone is because people are stupid, and people have decided that companies have a lot more money than they do, and they will sue them for the slightest thing. And so what the lawyers for the companies have responded by doing is to drag out the bureaucracy of the company and the paperwork of the company and all that sort of stuff, so that the companies now have a lot more leeway to be able to fire individuals who are potentially problematic. And it's falling disproportionately on the 20-somethings who are coming out of college, got their pronouns on their resume, and they want to go to work and spend their entire day worrying about the Palestinians instead of their actual job. And companies are like, no, we are tired of Gen Z, and they're adopting causes instead of kids. We will pay for you under our employment policies and medical policies and personnel policies. We will pay for you to adopt a human being, but you are costing us money adopting the cause of the day. And it's true. And I got to say, if I'm real honest, I have a real hard time relating to the people who go to a job and are that easily offended by stuff. My assistant, we do a 10:30 phone call every day with my team on here's the stuff I think I'm going to talk about on radio, although typically it gets to like 12 o'clock. The show's about to start, and I'm still on like the second half of the first hour. What am I going to talk about? Some days you can tell, many days you can't. My poor assistant, she could probably she can sue my great-great-grandchildren for the amount of HR violations I'm sure she could have. You got three guys and this wonderful lady who I am scared of, who keeps my time managed, and she puts up with a lot with us. And she was the perfect fit for our team. She does not get offended by this stuff. It reminds me when I was a lawyer, we had a receptionist. Her name was Roz. Roz sadly fell off the wagon at some point and never got back on, and they had to let her go. She was a great woman, had a very troubled, bothered life, in and out of addiction. I remember one time as a young lawyer, I said something to her and immediately thought, oh my gosh, I think I might have just offended her. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. She looks at me. She says, baby, you didn't offend me. I grade sexual harassment. Those are the sorts of people you want at your company. They are. You don't want the pronoun games at your company. It's just interesting to me that I'm hearing more and more from people as companies have moved away from the pronoun gang. It's like they're doubling down on the HR training videos, the pro forma stuff you got to go through to work in these companies. And it's just these stories have cropped up more and more. And I just thought it was all funny because last night I had to sit in my office and watch my training videos, which were not nearly as extreme as some of what other people have told me happened with their training videos and the in-person consultants who came in. It sounded way more like my college or my law school diversity training they put us through, where you had the outside consultant come through. My gosh, to be a diversity consultant. And you notice they're almost always white women. I've always found that very funny, how it's always the white women who get hired as the diversity consultants to lecture us on your company being too white. Irony knows no bounds. But I am a little bit encouraged to hear from more and more people in the corporate world that corporations now realize if you put your pronouns on your resume or your signature line, you're probably not getting a job, because they know instead of adopting the causes of the company, you're going to bring to the company all your neuroses and political causes. 877-973-7425 is the number. Let's go to Tyler. Welcome to the show, Tyler. How are you?
Good. I hope you're having a good day.
Yes, indeed.
I was just calling to say it's not as easy as you would think to get off of paying people unemployment for calls, firings, because my wife is dealing with that now with her small business, where she had an employee that it turns out was working from a work-from-home position and was turning away potential business and taking many, many days of her 45-day employment off of work for mental health reasons and stuff. And my wife wrote out a very good 4 calls termination letter. And she is still going to be paying unemployment to this former employee because, well, the employee tried her best. So that is the way the unemployment thinks it as well, as long as they try their best, even though they didn't work and turned away business purposefully, it seems.
Right.
You could still have to pay them.
Yeah, look, it is a deeply frustrating situation in so many of those cases, and again, it's too the more and more employers are learning that if you hire someone who uses pronouns that are not heteronormative, to use the phrase that the left would use, you are probably hiring someone who clearly is struggling with mental health issues, and it is going to make your life a living hell as an employer to hire that person. It is. The neuroses of these people who play the pronoun games, because it actually is a level of pathological narcissism. You want to stand out from the world, so you have customized your pronouns, and then you impose your will on everyone else, where most people on planet Earth don't have custom-tailored pronouns, and you impose your will on everyone else to recognize yours as a way to exert power over others for a need to be individually unique. And that is a big red flag and should be for every hiring situation. And increasingly, it is it's just remarkable that we're in that weird situation. Now, let me talk about the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. Stocking stuffer idea. They do fit in most stockings. I put mine in my stocking the other day just to see, so I could tell you for real, and it fit. Although I do have a great stocking. In any event, you can get 3 of them for less than $200. You save $200. It's EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK, the number 3, no space. It eliminates odors. It's an odor eliminator. It's like odor bleach, ozone is, and it wipes out odors. You get 3 of them for less than $200. You save $200. Gets rid of bacteria and viruses. 99%, the lawyers make us say. It gets rid of pollen, dust, pet dander, but it eliminates odors. No odor can stand up to it because, you can't get the cleaning chemicals where the odors are necessarily originating, but the Eden Pure generates ozone that floats in there and wipes out the odors. EdenPureDeals.com. You get 3 of them for less than $200. You save $200. Get them for upstairs, downstairs, your basement, wherever you need them. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3 at EdenPureDeals.com.